We fear birth so much and we fear death the whole time. They are exactly the same transition. You're coming from someplace. Oh, it's a celebration. You're leaving to go someplace. That should be a celebration. But those two ends of the spectrum, we are absolutely paranoid about. And I don't think it was always like that, because as adults, we are conscious beings with choice. We can change that story. We can have different beliefs about ourselves. And I feel like the only reason that I don't feel so unprepared anymore is because I'm trusting the process more and I take care of myself. And you have to in every aspect. Like, that birth is going to go the way it's going to go. I'm not there to save them. Just from being a student myself, I take what information means the most to me at the time, or what my filters allow me to see. And that's how every parent is when they come into class.
Welcome to the Keeping Your Power Real Talk on Resilience podcast. I'm your host, TraciDoula. I'm a family and birth advocate, a mentor, and your personal encourager. I wanted to create the space for individuals, families, and professionals who are done with just surviving and want to rise. Because when everything feels like it's falling apart, the one thing the world can't take from you is your power. And that's where resilience begins. It's not just riding the waves or surviving the storms. It's about how to overcome the challenges. So whether you're in the thick of it or reflecting on where you've been, pull up a chair and let's navigate the hard conversations and the beautiful stories that together we can be honest and use empathy and have a desire to grow, all while, of course, keeping your power in the process. In a culture that often tells us to suppress our feelings or to just get over it, we're here to talk about the hard and often unspoken work of making space for ourselves, for healing, and for becoming the kind of people who can hold space for others. I'm joined by my friend, Care Messer, who is also a fellow birth worker and childbirth educator. Together, we explore what it means to truly understand why we think the way that we do, and how self-awareness and teachability in life's hardest moments are the keys to breaking generational patterns. Today, we look hard at the perception of acceptance means love can be holding us back from true resilience. There might be some hard pills to swallow, but we can do hard things and keep our power in the process. Hey, Care, thank you for spending time with me today. I really appreciate it.
I'm excited to be here. I'm glad you're entering the world of podcasting.
I am just so super excited, but I'm excited for you to be here today because when we met, I felt like we had this instant connection, but not only in the birth world, but just in life. And we had known each other online, but it was when we got in person and we started really talking about our stuff, because we have both been through some things and some of our stories kind of were very similar, and which just really brought us together, I feel like. And you, to me, just look very all together, very organized. I'm very jealous.
It's so true, though. I am very all together. I'm very organized. Yep.
Yes. I believe
it's all a mask, but I'm glad that you recognize it.
I do. And then when you filled out your little form, because everybody that comes on the podcast does, I was a little surprised by, one of your answers. You said you felt sometimes still unprepared and maybe a little trapped sometimes. And I want today's audience to know that we don't have it all together, or we don't need to pretend that we always have it all together. And I want you to just share those feelings of that and where you think that might come from.
Oh, my word. Okay, we're going back to the beginning of time. So one of my teachings and platform basic understandings is that babies remember their birth. And from conception forward, we are carrying all the emotions, experiences, everything, because it's our lived experience as a human. And one of the things that people don't really recognize or understand unless they know the birth psychology behind it is that the way we're born literally sets our patterns for life. And sometimes those feelings and patterns are set because of our mom's emotions and what she was going through, but now we're carrying it. So that generational trauma stuff, that can go 7 backwards and 7 forwards is real. And I'll give you a little brief explanation of my birth story. My mom was having me to keep my dad around. So it was an urgent pregnancy. So I don't know how that happened with conception. And the whole time she was pregnant with me, it was, this better work. So I wasn't really wanted, but I was necessary to keep the family together. And well, she was probably around 40 weeks. She had really bad sciatica. She'd gained 63 pounds. She was miserable. And she really wanted a natural birth this time. My older 4 siblings all were heavily medicated. She couldn't walk. It was a hard recovery. And it was 1972. Yes, I'm dating myself, 53 years ago. And which is weird to say that out loud, that I'm 53. And she was in that natural birth movement, like everybody's doing it. So she wanted to do that. No training, no education, just this time I don't want medication. So they're in Alaska at this time. My dad's an Air Force officer, but there is no hospital in the Air Force base. So they had to go to the Army base. And Army doesn't like Air Force, basically, especially officers at that point. And when my mom at her last appointment, got off the table and she was limping, he went, "You look really miserable. Do you want to get that baby out today?" And she said, "Yes. Can we do that today?" And he goes, "Sure, let's go." So it was an induction, but she didn't know what an induction was. The only thing she had told him was, "Please do not give me any pain medication, no matter how much I beg for it, because I want a natural birth this time," not knowing what an induction was and what she was signing up for. So as those contractions got harder and harder, and it got worse and worse for her, and I happened to be back labor, she begged them to give her something. And they said, "No, remember, you didn't want that." So they would just up the Pitocin. Then as it got closer and closer and she was more tortured, they said, "Let's get you in the bed." They strapped her down. Remember, I'm back labor. So everything was compressed. And it was absolutely miserable for her. You could have gotten military secrets out of her. That's how bad it was.
Oh, wow.
And trapped on the bed. So I'm the baby inside, squished and rubbing back and forth on those bones, trying to get out, and probably feeling very helpless and pushed. The words that have always come into my mind since I was little is trapped, confined, never ready, unprepared. And those were just kind of the theme of my life. Didn't understand where they came from until fast forward, I was in birth work. And all of a sudden I was like, oh, she had me and basically said she died, saw God, and he made her come back. And she was very resentful of that, probably because of the pain she'd gone through. I totally get it. Right. And thinking that if this baby doesn't save my marriage, whatever. And I was supposed to be a boy. So then I was also a disappointment because the vagina was there and not the penis. It was a very rough delivery, obviously. And my first memory of her was, I have to do this again. And that came through a hypnosis session, I don't know, when I was 30 something. And I saw her disgust and I saw her hand me off to a nurse. So those are the feelings that I brought forward. And through my whole life, doesn't matter how I prepare, how I am an A+ student, whatever I did, when I would get up on that stage, completely unprepared until I opened my mouth and then all of my preparation, right? But the feeling of never being enough, not being prepared, feeling anxious about, oh my gosh, what my delivery is going to be, how many notes do I need to take? That was my theme. And probably, it was maybe 6 years ago, I was doing some craniosacral work with one of my energy worker friends that does really good craniosacral. And my body started to convulse and I started to relive my birth. And she moved from my feet up to my head and was holding my head. And I could feel the compressions of the contraction and how much pressure there was. Pressure was another word that I used all the time. I feel like I'm under so much pressure. And my whole body started to move in those baby movements. And I could hear myself saying, I just need more room. I just need more room. I need to get out. And those were my feelings as a baby, trying to figure out how to get through. And Ashley, kept doing everything, let me work the whole thing out. I was in tears by the time I had completed the process, but had felt reborn. And it took me a while to integrate those feelings and understand, oh my gosh, what happened to me? And then the understanding of what babies are going through. That could be a simple process for them, figuring out the pelvic floor and knowing how to come out. But yet the more interventions we place on them and the more pressure we place on them. Our body, the way our body moves matters. And it just brought me into a whole other alignment for, oh, half of this stuff was hers. And that result is where my patterns got set. It doesn't mean it's the truth,
Right.
but it's what I believed my whole life.
It is so super interesting. I saw a video that Miley Cyrus just did not too long ago talking about EMDR and how it took her all the way back, all the way back to her mom and then to her grandmother. And she saw her, her mom give her to her grandmother, those things. And it just kind of all came full circle for her. And it's so very interesting how we can tap into things that help us understand the way we think, no matter if it's true or not. We have a foundation that we have to start. Well, I was adopted. So in understanding kind of what that foundation was, I always had a sense of abandonment. And I needed to have that one really good friend throughout elementary school. And I wasn't, my adopted family was super amazing. But I didn't really connect with my adopted mom the way that everybody else kind of loved, I guess, their birth mom. And I didn't understand that until I dug really deep into why am I thinking the way that I'm thinking? And it went back to birth. It went back to the early days of just me being separated from my biological mother, not getting that oxytocin chemical reaction that starts with the bonding. And so I think it's very interesting. We can even go back further and figure out the birth-wise why we think what we do. And then it propels us into this life of growth and understanding and having a whole new perspective of how to treat ourselves and then how to treat others. And I feel like as birth workers, we're all in this birth stuff. It's like we have people come to us, they want to be educated, but then we have a deeper perspective that's very profound that we have to sometimes weed out the bias. Right? It's like, oh, I don't want that to happen to anybody else. I have my triggers. I know that we have talked about this. I am super triggered when a baby is even taken across the room from its mom, because all babies need to be with their moms for just
and
a
I
second.
didn't get skin to skin either. And that's one of mine where it's like, why are you separating? Like everything is fine. Leave the baby there.
Yeah, no, don't do this. Don't do this to this baby, because we're not even thinking about the moms really in that point. We're thinking about the babies and what the babies are going to think later on. You talked about induction. So tell me how you, like, when you hear the word induction, or I feel like we are in an induction epidemic right now in our birth culture. And we'll talk about that in a second, but tell me, like, what comes to your mind when you're thinking about induction?
I almost think it's a pandemic because it's worldwide.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
My activation comes with induction because we don't have the education like my mom. We get into things that we aren't prepared for, and we don't understand the effect it has on the baby. And we're not going to stay pregnant forever. Like, that's the bottom line. And as those rates of induction go up and up and up, and we're talked into it for safety reasons, there's no discussion on the actual risks of what can happen when you start intervening and forcing a body to do what it's not ready to do. I do have to check myself. And I think that's one of the reasons that we wrote Induction 101, is because you cannot, just like an MD or a midwife cannot go over all the different type scenarios with induction and what could happen and what we're looking for and what your body's doing and how we're working with the due date or not. Like, there's so much that I had to put it in one container, because even in hypnobirthing, I can't cover all that. There's just no time for it. And that's a disservice to my families, because every single family is going to run up against it. And if they haven't already run up against it, those little threads of your baby's too big, your body's too small from the very beginning, or your baby's not growing enough, so let's get the baby out early, or I only let my families go to a certain amount of time, and then you have to have the baby by 40 weeks, whatever it is, it's all bullshit. But the people that actually need induction, is so much less than the people that are offered induction.
Mm-hmm.
And the only way we're going to make those scales tip is if we have more education. And many families don't get educated because they're so scared of birth. They're scared they're going to find out more stuff they're more scared of. When in reality, it just creates more fear if they're not educated, because then everything's being done to them and they have no control. And now we're at 1 in 3 births with birth trauma. Like, that isn't necessary.
Once you know something, you're responsible for it. So I feel like it's that, but we're in the same generation. I'm 51. I'll go ahead and say it proudly. We're not dating ourselves. I am proud where we are. And I feel like we have the benefit of seeing the trending things throughout our whole birth worker time, and things trend. And I feel like induction is one of those. It has been trending for a while. We didn't talk about induction when I first started teaching childbirth education. We were talking about the medical needs for induction. These are the things that you might have to have an induction for. And really, it was a might word more than it was you will definitely have to have.
Absolutely. We didn't have to cover it at all compared to what we do now.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I also feel like we have been conditioned throughout time that when our doctors are saying something, then it's something we absolutely have to do. And there are some providers, OBs, midwives, that really are good at educating on, look, this is what's in my head. This is my standard of practice, but this is your situation. And let's talk about, the actual critical thinking, risk, benefit. How do you feel about it? Do we feel like this is your situation?
But Tracy, we both know there's very few that actually do that. Yes. They don't have the time,
nope.
Nor the understanding of it, because it's easier to put you on a schedule.
Mm-hmm. And they have no time. There's these huge practices that have 12 to 15 doctors in them that our students and our clients are seeing a doctor every time they go, and they're not developing relationships with them. And I'm seeing that over time, because we used to teach, hey, have a really good, strong relationship with your provider. It will overflow into birth. Well, we don't know who's delivering you now. So, they're kind of grasping at whatever education that they can get from the provider that they're seeing. And that's going to be different per provider. I've had clients and students call me crying. I had a really good discussion with the provider last time, but this time, this provider tells me that I might have to be induced at 39 weeks. So there's so much confusion on what actually has to happen. And so as birth workers, that's just very, that's taxing on us. And it's heartbreaking that we have to keep saying the same things over and over and over again. And when we are not fully functioning as 100% people, we cannot carry over into support and education of our fan base, our listeners, whoever we're trying to help, because we're just underneath the rubble, brokenness of what we're dealing with. And induction is just one of those things. It's just one of those things. And, for birth workers and for everybody that's listening that you might be in a pregnancy, might want to be getting pregnant, an induction is not a bad thing. It is a thing that I think we need to be very gentle with, and we need to ask a lot of questions about. Standardized practice or individualized care? What if we don't do it? Do I absolutely have to have it? And am I thankful that we've come a long way in that we are recognizing human rights in it? And if somebody wants an induction, there's opportunity for that too. But we have to, think about shifting back to the world of what makes us think the way that we think, and how do we get to the place of not crashing when we come to those forks in the road, I guess, so to speak. Because say it's not a pregnancy related thing, say it's a relationship thing, any kind of relationship that I can even think of, a romantic relationship, a friendship, any of those things, if we're not healing these parts of us and thinking the way that we're thinking, then we can't have healthy relationships. And that even means spiritually also.
We can't even teach different human beings and different groups of human beings if we haven't done our work. I have been in therapy for a very long time, and it has evolved over. I teach totally different than I did at the beginning, where I thought I was doing a pretty good job. And there's way more room now for the conversations of, where do you come from? How are you guys working together? What are your most important things? How do you feel like you're going to raise this baby? It's so different than, here's the chart of how a baby comes out. Here's what happens physically, because it's such a spiritual and emotional journey and a connection piece. I think that's why, and now that I'm moving into death work, we fear birth so much until it's over, and we fear death the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
They are exactly the same transition.
Mm-hmm.
You're coming from someplace. Oh, it's a celebration. You're leaving to go someplace. That should be a celebration. But those two ends of the spectrum, we are absolutely paranoid about. We're freaked out. And I don't think it was always like that. But if we're meant to stay frozen in fear, we don't even explore who we are and where we came from and what's made us up, who we are, and what stories are true and what stories aren't true. Because as adults, we are conscious beings with choice. We can change that story. We can have different beliefs about ourselves. And I feel like my self-care the only reason that I don't feel so unprepared anymore is because I'm trusting the process more, and I take care of myself.
Trusting the process.
Literally, you have to in every aspect. Like, that birth is going to go the way it's going to go. I'm not there to save them, but I can present the information. I know just from being a student myself, I take what information means the most to me at the time, or what my filters allow me to see.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
In any education.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how every parent is when they come into class.
Mm-hmm. And just in general, I think that we have been conditioned in some circles to just deal with things. We weren't allowed to talk about it. You're seen and not heard as kids, especially in our generation,
Or that's just how it is, with no explanation.
That's just how it is. Let's pull yourself up by your bootstraps. You're not allowed to talk about it. I do feel like we're in a time now that we are giving safe spaces to talk more about it. And I think people should be, and that's what this is. We should be encouraged. You can't fake resilience. You just can't. It is a process that you absolutely do have to go through however, but you got to recognize that you need it first, right? You can't do it alone. You can't do it by yourself. You got to figure this stuff out. Where did you come from? Why do you think that? And then you have to move forward in that. We can't get stuck in, and we cannot fake it. We cannot fake it. And there has been so many comments, especially on my TikTok page and under some of my videos, that hurt people. There are some awful, awful comments. And I'm just an encourager, and that's just what I want to do. And then people get into the comment section and they try to encourage one another. And then you see somebody come along and you know that they're so unhappy.
They're in so much pain. You can tell just by their comment.
Just by the comment. And I'm like, who hurt you? And I'm sorry that somebody hurt you. But I feel like we have, in some circles, we're just not allowed to feel. We're not allowed to cry. We're not allowed to talk about our stuff. And it kind of carries over into the other parts of parenting and childbirth preparation. And, I don't have a need. When I ask, people, well, what are your emotional needs? I don't know, because nobody allowed them to have an emotional need or have an emotion, maybe their mom was not emotionally regulated. So they, we're not allowed to have big, strong emotions because it triggered the mom. So all of this carries over into specific things in our lives. And I think especially too, when we don't give space for self-care, which is not just massages.
A spa day. Yeah. It's not a spa day. It is meditation. It's just taking a walk. It's a nap.
It's a nap.
It's a nap, right?
It's a nap.
And I think too, when I go back to, because we really did connect on our background and our stories. And because people we tend to be very surface level and we don't dive into each other's stuff, whether it's because we don't want to carry their stuff or we really don't want to know. And especially with online connection now, it's very much, oh, I like them, I follow them, or, oh, I met them online, but there's no, who are they? We're just, what mask are they? You're following a mask until you actually know who they are and what their traumas are, or, what they came from. And I think that's one of the things that I love about teaching is once we start opening up the conversation, they're like, well, my mom really didn't let me talk about blah, 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 because she was a little narcissistic. And in order to function in the household, you just had to walk on eggshells all the time. So I don't want to pass that on to my kid, but yet they've never talked about it and they're repeating it with their partner, because we always attract a partner that reflects, right? So that we can see what our stuff is, and we've learned to do it again. If we haven't had those conversations, been okay with, we all have stuff.
Yeah.
Like there's no one that there are very few people that say, my gosh, my childhood was so great. My parents were so centered and everything. I can count on my hand, and maybe there's two of them.
Right.
Because when I say, what are the things you want to pass on to your kid? What are the things you absolutely are deal breakers? No way is this going to happen. There's the no way is not going to happen way more than this would be an awesome tradition.
Right.
And if we haven't had those conversations, even with ourselves, and been honest about them, we're going to pass it on. And we don't want to, but we're going to pass it on.
And we need to have the freedom and permission to want to do something different that we were raised in, and not feel like we're putting down our parents. I hear that a lot. Like, I don't want to hurt my mom's feelings, or my mom did the best that she could, so I don't want to hurt her feelings if we do something different. And I had a great mom. She was doing the best she could with what she had, but it still was not okay that she put me in a position that made me feel like acceptance meant love. Did she know she was doing that? That's irrelevant. She still did it. It is imperative for us to circle around our own back door. Self-awareness is everything. And I wrote letters to all of my kids. And the moment that I realized, oh no,
it seeped right into my parenting. I did the same thing. That's so funny. I told Angie, I give you 100%. I am so sorry with anything you come to me with, because that was your lived experience with me. 100% I am sorry. And I will work it out however you want.
Absolutely.
Because we can't think, well, I did the best I could and just say that's enough. No,
it's not.
It's not.
Not at all.
And it's not an ego thing for me to be upset about that. I love you so much that I want you, whatever filters, because Angie was adopted too. She came to us at 5. So she had a whole bunch of built-in filters. Who knows what damage I did because I was trying to make it a perfect household, with this new little girl that I was blessed with. I know I've messed her up. And at the same time, I've given her a lot of good things too, because we love each other. We're really good friends, but you can't be perfect. It's just not. And you will hear your mom's stuff come out of your mouth more than once.
Even if you vow, I will never do the things that my parents did. That's just who raised you. And it's going to come up. You might have to apologize for it later. But I told my oldest daughter, I'm so terribly sorry that I put so much pressure on you when I had my she was my second, and there was 7 years in between she and Becca, and I relied on her a lot.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm so sorry. I should have never done that to you. And I mean, family dynamics are different. I just felt like she needed an apology from me. Same with, I wrote a letter to Christopher too, with some specifics and the things that I knew that I could have done better. The moment that we acknowledge the things, we should apologize for them. Blanket apologies mean nothing to our children. And I am so very blessed to be able to watch Emily parent my grandchildren, and she's lovely. I'm so thankful she's not doing it the way that I did. I'm so thankful that she's recognizing and breaking those. Yeah, you were doing the best that you could, but we're going to do it this way. And I'm cheering her on every step of the way. And we don't need to hide from those things. We need to be better at supporting one another in that, hey, it's okay. It doesn't mean that you're a bad person. It means that you're acknowledging the wrongs. You're saying, I'm sorry. And you're building those relationships that mean something for the length of time that we need those. The parents that are saying, I didn't do anything, or I just did the best I could. We have to be self-aware, even if, so I have a daughter who's gone no contact, and apparently there is something there that she believes she needs to go no contact with. And I recognize that. And so in my working on me, I understand that we need to have a conversation. Well, she's not ready for that. So since she's not ready for the conversation, there's nothing else that I can do but to work on myself to be ready for that conversation.
I think the listeners also need to realize our generation and a little above had the attitude of, I did what I could, you owe me, whatever. And instead of, I think where now our notch is that they're not a reflection of us, and we were a reflection of our parents.
Right.
Like if we weren't this way and this way and this way, we were a reflection. So we owed them.
Right.
And for us to go, well, and that's another thing. I don't want to hurt their feelings. Like, because this will make them proud, or this will make them embarrassed if I do gentle parenting or whatever, if I sleep with my kid or whatever it is. And I think that there's a difference in understanding that my daughter is an independent person. Her choices are her choices. I'm going to respect whatever her choices are, love her through it. I'm here if she needs me, but I don't need to delve into her life and sort it out.
Right.
Because just like yours, she's felt like she needs to go contact. Angie did that for 6 months with me. And I was like, okay, cool. Did I call her all the time? Did I text her? Nope. She said, draw on the line. There's the line in the sand. Do not. I'm like, okay, why wouldn't I respect her as an independent human? That is no reflection on me. Maybe I did something that pissed her off. Yeah, but we can't figure it out until she talks to me. So whatever time she needed. And she finally did come around and we had that conversation. But I think our parents, especially boomers, if we're going higher, we are, and it depends on where you are in the country, right? You are a reflection of me. You will mind your P's and Q's. You will do X, Y, Z. And we're afraid to be our independent person and find out who we are. And that's part of raising good kids, is knowing who you are and knowing that you're the nuclear family now.
Mm-hmm. And breaking that codependency, that's where I see the generations of, yes, the reflection, but then you're put on this earth to make me happy. And then I see
so much.
Yes. And then I see that, sort of in the adoption world too, kind of overall, and not to step on any toes or hurt anybody's feelings. But I think, in the adoption world in general, it's, well, I'm saving this child from a life that is not the best. That's why there's the opportunity to adopt. But then the adoptee has to be grateful for that life and, those kind of things. Then with my students, being older, and then you have your millennials and then your generation, Zs.
They're my favorite. They're my favorite.
Yeah. I mean, and it's kind of coming, to, now I'm really seeing how the codependent moms are with really their sons of, then that relationship between the son and the new wife, maybe, or, their partner. And then that mom, man, she's getting left out, and she is making it really hard on that core family. And then I talk a lot about boundaries and a lot about those things. And when I mentor people through that stuff, I'm thinking to myself, I got to be better. I got to be better about boundaries. I got to be better about not expecting to be invited to something. It's an honor to be invited. It might hurt my feelings a little bit, but there's just no obligation for me to be at a birth, or for me to know immediately or be the first person told, because, there's a positive pregnancy test, or I get to hold this baby first, or I get to be present at these births or whatever.
Isn't it so crazy? Because I don't know how many moms are like, well, I'm going to be there. Well, of course she's not going to push that baby out without me in the room. And they're trapped with this. And I'm like, y'all, this is your baby, your family. I mean, I don't want to sound pretty crass, but they're all going to die. You are the family.
Yes.
Whatever you need to do for your family is what you do for your family. And if they want to love you through that, cool. But no, your family, there's no reason that the auxiliary people on the outside should ever come between what's going on that baby's life.
Right. And if
that's
it is, we need to really pay attention to that. And where is that coming from? Why I am really thankful that you are respecting or you're loving them enough, but are you putting them over your needs? Because there are some people who are like, I don't, it doesn't matter to me. Yeah, that's fine. No, Tracy, it's really fine. Is it fine? Yes, it's fine. But don't just say it's fine because you're not willing to tell them, or you're going to hurt somebody's feelings, or are trying to avoid the hard conversation of, you know what? Me and my partner just want to be in the labor room, even with our doula.
Choosing a strange woman over your mother. That's who you want in the delivery room? Yes, Mom, it is. Hard to hear, but yes, I would like a stranger that doesn't have any preconceived notions and filters of me in the room.
Right. And tell me tell me why you feel like your mom needs to be present. If you want your mom present, let's get it. Let's get it on board. If you feel like your mother-in-law needs to be present, let's see what we can do, because everybody needs a job in that birth room. They don't get to just be spectators and kind of watch you labor. Opening people's minds to the why, how you feel, the way that you feel really brings up, am I really dancing on eggshells? And do I really need to have hard conversations? I really wish that Kate, my no contact kid, would get to a space that she could get to have a hard conversation, because it's going to be hard for her. Of course it's going to be hard. Am I owed that? There's some different ideas about that. There's different ideas about, you ask millennials and even Generation X, you're not owed anything. And then you have, Generation X, maybe even some boomers that are like, oh, wait a minute, I gave birth to you, and then you went no contact without a conversation. Kate did not have a conversation with us. That's a little bit of a difference that some other people have. She didn't have a conversation. She just left. It was bam, no more communication with me or her entire American family, because now she's Canadian. So, what am I owed? I'm not really owed anything. I'm available, but I feel like I should, given the opportunity to know that she's okay. And I still don't know that. So there's a lot of nuanced feelings and concerns that go around with, just the no contact subjects. But the point of this is digging deep into self. How do we get to our strength? Where do we find our power? And then how do we grow from there? And it's not going to be easy, but we're not hiding from it. We're not just going to pull ourselves up from our bootstraps, but we're not going to ignore it. And we're not just going to say, oh, well, this is something that I'm just supposed to live with, or I'm just supposed to deal with that. Because then what happens? Our nervous system goes crazy. It starts going into fight or flight. We get depressed. Our brains don't work. And then the body keeps score.
Oh, it never forgets. Never forgets. And I think one of the things that has helped me get through, because I'm in no contact with my mom, and have been for 15 years. I have had one conversation with her, letting her know that I forgive her. I remind myself that we are independent humans, in that we come to the planet by ourselves and we leave by ourselves. So even though we feel like it's a humanity experience, and there's all these family and friends that are helping us along the way, and we're tied to them, it's really an individual solo journey. And whatever we're learning or not learning, or facing or not facing, is growing us, or it's keeping us stagnant. And we are the one who chooses that. And if we can find safe people that allow us to be who we are and kind of figure out who we are, we grow more in that situation than if we stay stuck in the stagnant and never explore outside of that. And I think that's one of the things that we like about birth work, is because pregnancy really brings that up. It sorts your shit, whether you want it to or not. Like, you're stuck in this, and here's new choices, and now you're responsible for a human being. What are you going to do? What side of the fence are you going to be on with every decision in the world? And that's why a lot of us have those big feelings during pregnancy, because it's like, I've seen what it's like on TV, and I want my pretty nursery, and I want cute outfits, and I want whatever. But then these deep feelings come up, and they're not ready for that, because we have only seen surface stuff. The whole point of pregnancy is to choose who you are, choose what choices you're going to make for this new human being, and figure out maybe a new path. It's big for some people.
Yeah.
When they've been sheltered or confined in a box.
And I think there's an awesome opportunity really for everyone to take the crisis that they're in. I think that there is a time for celebration, but there is time to, grieve the loss or whatever's happening in that crisis. And then think, all right, I'm going to get up the next morning. I'm going to do A, B, and C, and I'm going to figure out how to deal with this. That's the power of, and then the activity of moving forward is the resilience in that. We just have to get better with that. The opportunity is there. We all are going to go through something. And I feel like what defines a human the most or defines a woman the most is marriage and in a pregnancy. But then also anyone that listens to this, if you are in a crisis, just know that you're not alone. The next day is going to come, and take that as an opportunity. Like, nobody wants to go through a hardship. Look, nobody wants to be,
but we all do.
Nobody wants to be in a toxic relationship for a long time and then, have to figure out the other side of that. Nobody wants to have to figure out a child that has gone no contact. Nobody wants to figure out a parent who has dementia. Nobody wants to figure out, kids who might have some kind of illness and a challenge that we're having to face during when our kids are at home. But take it as an opportunity to look within yourself, because we've just talked about doing a lot of work to get to the place that when we are in crisis, we can look at ourselves and we can dig deep and find that power to move on. And that's what I want for people. I want for people to figure out what they believe, how they think the way that they think. And then in those times of struggle, dig deep and, I'm not floundering in this because I do know who I am. Where does that power come from? And for some people, and it's different for everyone, we're going to leave room for that. Some people, rely on God and their religion, and some people don't. But that power is powerful for everyone. And we have to be better at recognizing that for ourselves so we can overflow that. That's the strength. That's what resilience is.
Well, and Tracy, have you noticed in your life, whether it be God, universe, or whatever, when you're in one of those struggle moments or times in your life, I have noticed if I call out for a teacher, I need someone to help me through this. I don't know what to do with this. And the people that obviously I'm drawing from are not the people that are going to help me get through this. And maybe that's a prayer that I've sent out or a request to the universe or God, but those people show up. And it's almost like, do I have to be at a point of vulnerability in order for that teacher to show up? Because that's when those beautiful humans have dropped into my life with the exact word. And it could be sometimes an Instagram video or a TikTok video that I'm like, oh, ding, ding, ding. I never even thought about that, which gives me the next step on the path.
And being teachable, just being teachable.
Absolutely. And sometimes it takes us to hit rock bottom in whatever that is, to feel like, oh my gosh, I'm literally all alone here. You're physically, yes, maybe you're not though, because there is somebody that has an answer that will tip off like, oh no, I was right in how I felt. Because sometimes if we've had people that have made decisions for us our whole lives, because I was raised in a very heavy duty religion box, everybody always made the decisions, and it was what will please mom. What will not rock the boat? What will keep me under the radar, but keep me people pleasing everybody?
Right.
And then when I had to all of a sudden go, whoa, I have to please myself. It felt selfish. It felt unattainable, and it felt wrong. Wrong.
Same. And this is where we relate a lot, because same for me. I was raised in the church, and it was the same checklist kind of things. You do these and then you'll be a good kid. Here's my expectations. This is what you have to abide by for attention.
And then it was into a checklist for a good wife.
And then a good
and
wife.
A good mom.
So the acceptance meant love thing overflowed into my marriage and who I was with for 31 years. And, that perception of how things are supposed to go absolutely feels wrong when you are now on the other side of that and you're trying to either deconstruct what you believe about your relationship with God, and deconstruction doesn't always mean leaving the faith, and sometimes it means changing faith. But for me, it was just trying to figure out what scripture really meant and what my relationship God really was. And because it was blatantly obvious that what I had been taught and in was not normal. And that was therapy. That was a therapist that was also had a, PhD in family therapy, but she had her master's in theology. So she was covered on everything. And that's what I needed. I needed the untwisting of the things that had been put in my head. And with all of that, it does getting on the other side of this and being, single and having to figure out, stuff for yourself, and you don't have the parent or the partner. And there's been times where I have been going somewhere out of town, and maybe it's an off day, and feeling like, is this okay? Do people go on vacation?
Oh my gosh, I feel it.
Do people is this okay? Because didn't have to call somebody and say, this is what I'm doing. There's validation that I needed for that. And I have really questioned sitting on a plane thinking I'm doing something wrong, because there was nobody dictating what I was doing.
And part of my deconstruction away from the church too was deconstruction of relationships. In my family, God was first, then family, if you're doing what's right. And so when I walked away from the church, I walked away from my family because I knew the judgment was there. I was never going to fulfill what they wanted. But as soon as I would step back into doing all the checklists, I'd be more than welcome back. And I would see other families where even if they decided different religions, or they decided they were doing a spicy career, their family still loved them. And I was so confused by that, because mine was literally like, and we're done until you come back, till you're the prodigal son that comes back, and then we'll welcome you with open arms. And I realized that that's not family. Like
acceptance does not, acceptance meaning love. No.
Where's the unconditional love and acceptance of, like, I told my daughter, Angie, if you go to jail for doing something, I'll still visit you. I'll still write you letters. It doesn't change the fact your choices of what you decided for your life. I hope you don't go to prison, but if you do, I'll still love you.
Exactly.
Like, it makes sense to me on that level, but being raised in people pleasing mode and not knowing, like I literally go, I work for myself. I could take a day off and go to the beach and nobody would know. And can I do that without feeling guilty? Because I'm so used to productivity means going to heaven. Like, there's so many things that play out in my mind still that I have to, like, okay, self-care means I'm really tired today. I am going to take a break. I'm only going to work for 4 hours and really pound it out, and then relax.
And then nap.
Right?
Yeah.
And if we can find ways to foster that and then show our kids that, they realize, oh, life isn't meant to be work, no play, no fun, no memories.
Because I feel like we want, for the listeners, our students, clients, anybody that's listening to this, we want to fast track them through and not have to experience the things that we have experienced. And just, hopefully you're getting some tidbits of good things. My oldest daughter saw that I did everything. I took care of the house. I cooked. I cleaned. I did the laundry. I had 4 kids. I homeschooled my children all the way through. Did 20 years of homeschooling, and all of my spouse did was get up and go to work. That's all. And my daughter saw that. And a couple years ago, I went to the beach with them, and it was just me and her husband and my grandchild. And he was really little at that point, and not liking the sand and all of those things, age. And I was watching her in the Airbnb that we were all staying in together, and she was trying to do everything. She is preparing food for the baby. She's preparing lunch. And I'm like, hey, can I help you? No, I've got it. And I'm sitting there at the table and I'm watching her need help and not asking for help. And I said, Emily, if you don't mind, can I just suggest something? And she's like, oh yeah. And I said, can I help you? And I said, you're not doing anything. You're not weak. you can do this all by yourself, but if you would take help, I would love to help you. And she's like, oh yeah, okay, you can do this and this. And I kind of like fell on a sword. I want to help Emily, let me help you, without making her feel bad. Well, then later on that night, it was the same thing. And Matt's like, Emily, let me help you. She has a wonderful husband. I love Matt so much. And she's like, no, I got it. And I'm watching her just weary and tired and dark circles under her eyes. And I went to her again and I said, Emily, if I can I give you a suggestion? And she's like, sure. And I said, can you just let your husband help you? And she just kind of looked at me. I said, Matt wants to help you. And she's like, I got it. I'm like, but he wants to help you. And it would take a load off of your plate. Let him bathe the baby. We can clean the kitchen and have some alone time with us maybe. And she said, but Mom, you did it all. So she felt like she had to do it all because she had watched me do it all. So if you don't get anything else out of today, folks, be an example so that your kids know the normal things that a family is supposed to do for each other so that it doesn't overflow to them. Now, we can't say that we don't do some stupid stuff that, don't walk on eggshells thinking that we're always going to, ruin our kids. We're going to, no matter what. Like
I always tell my family, save for therapy because everybody's going to go.
Everybody's going to have it. Yeah. But be open and be honest and be, self-aware. I just cannot say enough about working on self and self-care being more than a spa day and, being very physically healthy and mentally healthy, emotionally healthy, and spiritually healthy, if that's where somebody bends to, and not hiding and not feeling like there isn't space for feeling the feelings and learning about the trauma and growing through the trauma. And that's what I believe resilience is.
100%. Yeah. And I think that understanding that your community has gone through what you've gone through too, maybe on a different level. We don't have to sit in our trauma, but we can sort it out and say, what has helped you?
Yeah. And being more open about, hey, this is what I'm dealing with. You are a safe person in my life. You might not know how to help me, but would you just listen? And that's when I just say, show up and shut up. Just sit down, listen to somebody's stuff. You don't have to fix it. The reciprocation of a friendship doesn't mean that we always have to fix or even carry. It might just mean just to listen.
Or even give advice. I hope that everybody has somebody that they can say, I don't want any pointers. Please don't give me feedback. I just need to talk about this and vent it out. And just let that person do it and just say, I love you. Yep. I hope that everybody has somebody like that, because sometimes you don't want you should have, and why aren't you? That doesn't help anything. It just makes you feel less than again.
Yep. Well, thank you, Care, for spending time with me today. I sure do appreciate you and your openness and your sharing and your mind and your heart. And I'm just very, very thankful for you.
I'm thankful for you too, Trace. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you for spending time with me today. If you follow me on TikTok at TraciDoula4 or Instagram at TraciDoula, you know how I like to dig into the deep conversations. If you don't follow me on those places, you should, as well as this podcast. As we lean into honest conversations, especially the hard ones, remember that your journey has power and your healing lights the way for others. The work you're doing ripples further than you know. If you'd like to work with me, whether it's coaching or childbirth classes or workshops if you're a professional, or mentoring, or maybe even speaking at an event, visit TraciDoula.com. And if today's conversation spoke to you, I'd like to hear your thoughts. Reach out anytime through email at hello@TraciDoula.com and feel free to leave a comment. Until next time, move forward with intention and keep your power in the process.